Ario, Ario usually gives me heck if I forget to record things. So we were just talking about self-capitalization. And again, I forgot to start the recording on time. And Ario didn't remind me this time, so it's your fault. So we're talking about self-capitalization, and most people think self-capitalization is when a rich entrepreneur who sold his or her previous startup funds their new startup with money they just happen to have, or maybe rich Uncle Buck gave them the money. But that is not bootstrap financing. That is not self-capitalization. Self-capitalization, as I said just before we started recording, is when you go to sponsors, clients, suppliers, and ask for some help to get your project off the ground. And in real estate, I was about to say, and was starting to say, that we do it a lot, even though we don't call it self-capitalization, where you might go to your contractor, your trades, or your sub-trades, and say, give me terms. I need $2 million to build this building. I've got $1.5 million. I've got $1 million in mortgage. I got $500,000 of my own money. But can you guys, all your trades, lend me $500,000, and I'll pay it back over, I don't know, some period of time? Or can I have 6 months to pay you? You understand? So there are forms of self-capitalization even in real estate. But anyway, as I was telling you, I published this article, and I got a call from a Harvard professor who said that he had defined self-capitalization. And of course, because he came from Harvard area, he has to be right, correct? At least in his mind. In his mind. And so he said, no, self-capitalization is exactly what I said a moment ago. When an entrepreneur has sold their former startup for a lot of money, and then he or she can just simply fund the new startup from money that they have. That is not self-capitalization. So anyway, he gave me heck, and I thought he was full of baloney. And I had, in fact, Ario, I had read his book, and it was talking about financing and entrepreneurship. It was about a 250 or 300 page textbook. I had read the thing, and in the entire 300 pages, there was like literally one paragraph on bootstrapping or self-capitalization. It was what I just mentioned, and it was ridiculous. And I mean, there's lots and lots of people who start tech companies that don't get venture capital investment, right? Lots. In fact, I think it's something like 98% of American startups, tech startups, have no venture capital at all. None. It's very, very, very high number. And Canada and other countries, it would be 99.999% are probably started up with no venture capital. The United States, it would be more, but it'd still be very small. The number one source of startup capital in the world is home equity. It's not bank lending. It's certainly not venture capital. And number one is home equity. Number two is self-capitalization. But if you were to publish a paper in physics when you become a great physicist, you're going to get criticized no matter what you do.
Yeah.
All right. So this is our last coaching session, at least for a while. And before we get too far involved in what we're talking about today, usually in the last coaching session, I ask the people I've been working with, where will you guys be in a year, and where will you guys be in 3 years?
So I guess Ari can start, or do you want me to start? Doesn't matter.
You can start, Armin.
In a year's time, do you want me to do personal as well, or business?
Yeah, no, it's coaching is more than just we hope to make more money. I mean, obviously, we all hope to make more money in a year, but personal as well as professional goals, yes.
Yeah, so I would like to personally expand my appraisal business across Canada for the next 3 years, and for the next 1 year, I would like to expand it to Ontario. We're already halfway there. For our real estate business, I'd like to build the one we have now for the next year, and build probably 3 more for the next 3 years. One for each family member. And Then personally, I'm trading a little bit. I really like it. If I were to make a lot of money, I would probably just trade and forget about everything else. So my goal is
What are you trading, Armin?
I'm good at currencies. I'm not good at anything else. Um, I'm aiming now to make 3 to 4% a week on leverage, and I usually make 1, 2, or 3% sometimes. So I'd like to keep that going and just put more capital towards it, so that there are more returns.
So, Armin, I don't have to tell you that the people who make the most money on this planet are not developers. They're not even the tech guys. It's the finance guys.
Finance guys, yeah.
It is. If you go to New York or Shanghai or Frankfurt or London or Paris, and I'm sure there are many other centers of finance, those are the people who make the most money.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, and finance is a huge, I mean, obviously it involves currency trading, but futures trading, options trading, stocks, bonds, it's an enormous, lending, tertiary lending, secondary lending, primary lending, private, equity. I mean, there's so many different parts of the finance world today. It's unimaginably huge, and it's unimaginably profitable. There is nowhere else in the world other than the entertainment business where the average 30-year-old makes 900,000 US dollars a year. I mean, how old are you now, Army?
29.
Yeah, so if you're making 900,000 US dollars a year, you're in a very select group, but I suspect you are not making 900,000 a year.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, nowhere near that.
Nowhere near. Okay. Well, listen, that's not a criticism. It's just that the average 30-year-old on Wall Street makes 900,000 US dollars, which is, I guess, about 1.2 or 1.3 Canadian. And there are not many 30-year-olds outside of, hockey or football or baseball, basketball that make that kind of money. Of course, they make even more, but if there aren't many developers at age 30 that are making, basically $1 million a year either. So, and I don't think you should feel in any way, negative about what you're doing, in the sense that you trade currencies and you know something about that. The people who make most money, again, in the finance industry have a very narrow expertise, and it's very deep. You understand? They're not trading options and buying stocks, selling bonds, buying gold. They're not doing hedging, any of that stuff. They're doing one thing, and they do it incredibly well, and they have incredible depth of knowledge. And so if it's currency trading, you will never, ever, ever run out of currencies to trade.
Yeah.
You already know that. And
Yeah,
if you make 3% a week, that's called usury, right? That's illegal. In other words, if you were to loan me money and say, Bruce, I'm going to charge you on a compounded basis 3% a week, that would work out to, I don't know, 200 or 300% interest a year. I think there's a legal maximum in Canada of interest you're charged, like it's 60% or something like that. You'd be way over that. And so that would be a very, very impressive result.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just the psychological mindset at the moment.
Well, and if your brother becomes when your brother becomes a physicist, there are many physicists working in the finance industry. You know that, right, Armin?
No, I never knew that.
Oh, yeah. They're called quants. Do you know how to spell that, Ario? Quant?
Yeah. They're the math guys, or
They're the math guys. And so when your brother becomes a famous physicist, you can ask him to design you, a program that uses AI and, of course, your own guidance. And you can trade currencies on a big mass level, right? Using the Ario model.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do, but right now I'm trading small scale, and so the psychological mindset hasn't kicked in yet, just because the capital is small.
Yeah.
So I keep adding more money to the portfolio. And I'm now on the fence of like, okay, I might be a little bit scared of like losing this.
Yeah, I get that. Well, one of my clients based in Montreal, he's a genius. He's an amazing trader. Like if I trade stocks, bonds, or anything else, I will be a miserable failure. Okay, like I that is something I have no skills at. I have a lot of knowledge in real estate and business. But outside of that, really nothing at all. So I've learned over the years not to go outside my realm of expertise because it would be the results would be terrible. But one of my clients, he is a real estate guy. He's a tech guy, and he loves crypto. And he has made a ton of money in crypto, and his timing has been fantastic. He bought Bitcoin when it was $7,000, rode it all the way up to I think $70,000 or whatever it was. And and what I advised him to do was when it got to 72 or $75,000, I said you should sell 3/4 of your portfolio, take your profits, and let the rest ride. And of course, crypto went up to, or I guess I'm talking about Bitcoin, went up to 72 or 75,000, and then it went back down to I think 17,000. So again, I can't give you any advice because I'm a hopeless trader, but it does make sense, I think, Armin, when you have some wins to take your profit and at least remove some of your chips from the table.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do as well. I don't know.
It takes a lot of discipline to do that, by the way.
Yeah, you have to be like a robot, emotionless and
Yeah.
heartless, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know if you are that guy, but you just hit the nail on the head, I guess the expression is. You do have to be heartless, emotionless, ruthless. The finance business is not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah.
All right. If you are a successful trader, if that's what you're going to do, then I think you should treat your appraisal business and your real estate business as a hobby. Because you can, in my opinion, Armin, for what it's worth, you can have one main business.
Yeah.
If you have three, you don't have any, right? Like Elon Musk, I mean, everybody says, well, Elon Musk can have, Solar City and Tesla and the Boring Company and SpaceX, and now he owns Twitter, X, probably a bunch of other things, Starlink, Internet. Yeah, I get that. But one of the things I don't think, as your friend and coach, you should do is compare yourself to Elon Musk. It's like me comparing myself, I don't know, to, the guy who ran Apple who's passed away. Help me out here. Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Jobs is in a category of one. Elon Musk, whether you like him or not, I don't care. He's in a category of one. And it would be like, again, Ario comparing himself to Einstein. Until he is the next Einstein, he is just Ario, right? And I think those comparisons are foolish. So for the vast majority of businessmen and women, the people who make the most money, you've heard me say it before, are the people who focus on one main business. If that's going to be real estate, it should be real estate. It's going to be the appraisal business, fine. But if it's going to be trading currencies, that's your main business. And then you say, well, I'll buy a couple of sixplexes, right? And I'll do the occasional appraisal because I feel like it.
Yeah. I'm just using those as money to fuel, I guess, the what passion. I like to do. Yeah.
And if you're passionate, this is the first time I've heard you speak with this kind of passion. When we talk real estate, you are fairly emotionless. and for the first time, hell, we've known each other for a year at least. For the first time, I'm really hearing the passion, and you're enjoying it. That's good. And that tells me you should do more of it within reason.
Yeah.
Okay. But I don't want you to turn into a gambler, somebody who's going to the horse races. Racetrack. Thank you. That will lead to disaster. Okay, enough of that. But those are fantastic plans. Now, one question about the appraisal business: how would you expand across Canada? What would that look like?
Just recruiting more appraisers or training them, and taking them through the steps of getting a license, and then obviously once they get the license, they work for us, and then we just give them a senior appraiser, and off we go.
So one of the things that I think would help, or at least you might consider it, is would you consider having your appraisal firm specialize in something?
Yeah, we could definitely specialize in something, but I can't.
What would you specialize in?
If I were to specialize in something, I'd do something in commercial, maybe gas stations or hotels or retirement residences. And I would probably do it across Canada, but the problem is, I guess, leads and figuring out how to get there into the specialized service, because I don't have anybody. Well, I know appraisal firms that do it, but they're one of the big firms, and so they don't usually like the senior appraisers. They don't usually come out of their bubble, essentially.
So I don't know if a specialization makes any sense, but there is something that would help your appraisal business.
What?
So when you're starting a business, one of the most important things today is to add differentiated value.
Yeah.
Right. I'm huge on differentiated value, and I've been like this since I entered business back in 1983. Ario, as you know, I was supposed to be a professor at the Australian National University teaching urban economics. Right. That was my career back in the day, and somehow or other I ended up as a business person. Right. But I never wanted to be a business person. I'm a good writer. I hope you read Quantum Entity. I'm not the greatest writer on the planet. I get that. But I'm a good writer and a good researcher. And really, my career should have been, in my opinion, I should have just been a professor at the Australian National University in Canberra and just called it quits. I'd be long since retired, and I would have been a very good professor. I was a good professor, but because my dad, and this is when you talk family, Armin, my dad needed some help. He roped me in. He said, just come and help me out for 6 months. And here I am 40 years later, still working and trying to help people. But anyway, there's something that I think could really help your appraisal business that I don't think any other appraisal firm in Canada or the United States is doing. I could be wrong about that, but I've never seen one.
Okay.
And that would be coaching your clients on how to improve property values. You and I have worked together with Ario here for some time now, and we've talked about animation. You probably heard, tired of hearing me talk about animation. But what appraisers will sometimes do is they'll point out, there was a water problem in the basement of this commercial building or this multi-res, and that affected the appraised value. So you might get a little bit of advice through your appraisal, right?
Yeah.
Usually on the cost side, But to be honest with you, I have never seen a single appraisal that really, even though they do talk about it, I don't have to tell you, this, even though they do talk about highest and best use, right? They don't actually offer any suggestions. They just simply say, well, Armin and Ario have a 6-unit building at 692 Crystal. I get that right? Yeah. 692 Crystal, and they rent 6 units for $12,000. Here's your vacancy rate. Here's this, here's that, here's your operating expenses. This is what you're left with. So we think the thing is worth X dollars. But you could add a consulting aspect or coaching. I prefer the word coaching to consulting. Consulting, when you say you're a consultant, it's like saying you're insulting somebody if you say, oh, you're a consultant, Bruce. If you call me a coach, that's a compliment, right? So Armin, did you ever play any sports where you had a coach?
Sometimes, yeah, when I was young.
What sport did you play where you had a coach?
Swimming. I swam a lot, I think.
Okay, and you had a coach, right?
Yeah.
Did you respect him?
Yeah. As far as I can remember, yeah.
Yeah. Ario, do you play any sports where you have a coach?
Not recently, but I guess back in school, when I was younger.
Okay, and what sports did you play or practice?
I soccer probably. Yeah, it was soccer.
And you had a coach?
Yeah, yeah.
Was he a good coach or she?
He was good, yeah.
He was good. And did you call him coach?
Can't remember what I called him.
Okay, so as you know, if I was a captain in the Army and you guys were lieutenants, you wouldn't call me Bruce, you would say captain, right? And I would call you lieutenant, right? My lieutenants, I'm the captain. It's uh, it's a form of respect, right?
Yeah.
So Armin, if you were to say, in addition to having it, and this would be a different service, right? It would be a knock-on service. If you would like some coaching from our appraisers on how to raise your property values, you know, we have that service available. And even if only 1 out of 100 customers use that, it doesn't really matter. And the reason for that is it differentiates you from everybody else.
Yeah.
So like, for example, at 692 Crystal, maybe it's not workable, but we've talked about maybe you put a workshop in the backyard, right?
Yeah.
And you can buy a workshop, put it in the backyard. Maybe by the time you fix it all up, you got $30,000 invested in it. You rent it for $700 to $1,000 a month. Your cap rate is, I don't know, anywhere from 14 to 20%. Well, most properties that you own or I own don't generate 14 to 20%. They don't. And
Right.
I've told you, I put in another parking pad at my barn dominium project. I just did that. It cost me $18,000, including services. And I rented that out for $700 a month, right? Plus HST plus power. So my cap rate on that is probably 30%. Maybe it's even higher than that. But I mean, there's a million different animation ideas that we've talked about, right, Armin?
Yeah.
And listen, again, I just think that would, whether it's just Ontario or it's across Canada or it's across Canada and the United States, I think that would really give your appraisal firm a lift.
Right. Okay.
Almost nobody talks about that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now let's try Ario. Ario, what are your 1 and 3 year goals?
Well, they're not so different, I guess, the 1 and 3 years. I guess I'll do more 3 years. I would like to finish my undergraduate degree, and hopefully go into grad school. Study-wise, work-wise, I do have a bookkeeping, I guess, business as well. I'd like to maybe add a few more people to that, for just monthly income, hopefully. And maybe 4 more. I think I can handle the workload. That's my goal.
How did you get into the bookkeeping business?
Well, we need to I guess clean our books ourselves. So I started looking into that, and I was just surprised, I guess, by the work they do. It didn't seem overly complicated. I did some type of bookkeeping in high school. I took like
Can
a
you use QuickBooks?
yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, and then yeah, I just looked into it more. I saw they were paid like decently, and also I remember, like, I don't know, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, people said, "Oh, bookkeepers are gonna die out, AI
Not a
taking
chance.
over," but
Not a
that's
chance.
not that doesn't seem to be the case.
No, no. They've been predicting realtors are going away for a long time. And I just completed a land transaction for one of my clients. And the number of problems, Armin, on that deal, I mean, there was no, I mean, it was just unbelievable. You know, there's a road that has to be built before the buyer can access the property that they're buying. There are site plan requirements. There are severances needed. There were so many issues and moving parts on this whole thing that had I not been involved as a realtor, I was just a realtor on this file, not a coach, the chances of that deal closing. But even on an average house, you know, people, you know, people are just, you know, without realtors, I would think that maybe 70, 80% of the transactions would fail, Armin. I'm not kidding. I'll give you a simple example. One of the young women who works for me, we got into a commercial deal I was helping her with, and we were selling, I think it was a 15,000 square foot office building, which was actually housing a tech company. We were selling it for, I think, $300 a square foot. So something like $4.5 million. And 2 days before closing, the buyer and the seller, both tech guys, got into a huge argument over, do you see behind me, there's like a whiteboard behind me?
Yeah.
Okay, there were a number of whiteboards in their boardrooms. I don't know how many, maybe 10 or 12. You know, and that one's a nice whiteboard. It probably cost $400. And there was an argument as to whether they were fixtures or chattels, right? The buyer argued they're fixtures because they're affixed to the wall and they come with the building. The seller said, don't be ridiculous. We just hang them up. We just pull them off like that and we walk out with them. It's like our paintings. We're taking our paintings. You're not claiming that our paintings are fixtures. So these two tech guys on a $4.5 million deal, this young woman was trying to referee it. And they both said, well, F off. They were swearing at each other. And we're not going to do the deal and we're going to sue you. They're going to sue each other. I mean, how stupid can you be? You're talking about maybe 10 of these whiteboards. Back then, I don't think they were as nice as this one. They're probably $100 each. You're talking about maybe $1,000, right? On a $4.5 million deal, right? Yeah. That is irrational. And if anybody tells you, Ario or Armin, at any time in your career, from now until whatever, that human beings are irrational, they are not. Human beings are non-rational. They are not. There is a level of rationality to us, but it's very superficial. Most of us are guided by our reptilian brains, our old brains, right? You understand, Ario? The old brain? It's like down here, and it's a little reptile, and it's the fear or flight thing that controls you. And so people get angry. They do things that hurt themselves, even though they say, I'm going to show that guy, I'm going to cancel the deal. But you're canceling the deal over $1,000 worth of whiteboards. That guy who was buying it needed this, and the guy who was selling it needed to sell it because he bought I helped him buy a bigger building, right, which was 30,000 square feet. Do you understand, Armin, how stupid it was?
Yeah. So what happened at the end?
So, you know, so this young woman calls me up. I mean, it's a big commission for her. You know, we go 50-50 on these deals. And I said, well, don't do anything today. Let them stew and let them both, don't just, no matter how many times they call you or they call me, we're going to ignore them for 24 hours. Oh, I can't do that. Yes, you can. You work for me, not for them. Yeah. So we just froze them out. And then the next day I called them, not both together because but now they hate each other. This is so stupid. Yeah, when people hate each other, they do really dumb things. So I called them up and said, well, you know, I don't know what we should do. I understand you're upset. You know, these are your whiteboards. So I said, are there a few that you could leave? You know, maybe you could leave a few. Well, there's a couple of boardrooms. I guess we don't need those. Okay. So I call up the guy. Maybe you could just keep a few and let him take a few. And so eventually, over about 3 days, the closing was delayed. Wow. But we did, eventually, I think it was like a 50-50. Okay, you could keep half and I'll take half. I mean, it was ridiculous. Yeah. So there you go. But anyway, coming back to the bookkeeper business, Ario, you remember how I've talked about personal business for life?
Yeah.
It's PB4L, right? You've seen the initials I've used, PB4L. So with all due respect to both of you, as your friend and coach, I would give you this piece of advice, because I may not see you again or for a while anyway. Never, ever, ever let your bookkeeping business or your appraisal business go. Okay? Even if you become this enormously successful currency trader, you know, there's that guy who's a big currency trader. Everybody hates him. I can't remember what his name is, but you would know who I'm talking about. He's like, he can bring down whole currencies. You know, he'll bet against the Turkish lira and collapse the lira. You know, I can't remember his name, but I could find out. Even if you did that, Armin, if something goes wrong, like really wrong, it could be a decade from now, it could be 4 decades from now. You're young enough. It could be 4 decades from now. You have a personal business for life that you own that you can go back to.
Yeah.
Are you following me?
Yeah.
All right. So you know, real estate can come and go. You know, maybe the interest rates go back like they were in the 1980s to 19%, and you have to let all your buildings go because you can't afford to keep them. That could go away. Maybe your currency trading, you have a big house, trading house, and some rogue employee bets the farm on a $2 billion bet without you knowing about it, Armin, and the next thing you know, you're broke.
Yeah.
That your personal business for life, personal business, last 2 words?
For life.
For life. So, Ario, you might be working at a university, you might be working at an institute, you might be rich and famous as a physicist, that's great, but you can get fired, right? Universities are not the same places to work at as they used to be. Ario, are you listening to me? They're not.
I'm processing that, I guess, yeah.
I guess you are, but they are not the same as they used to be. One of my friends who's a professor of architecture at Carleton University got fired, this is a few years ago now, because he said a swear word in class.
Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus. And you know, I mean, there are students, mostly female students, but other students, male men as well, I suppose. Some of the females in the class went and complained, and my friend said, well, he probably said shit or something like that, you know. But it wasn't just because he had used swear words. He refused to change his language. Like at Carleton, you're supposed to say, you know, sewer cover as opposed to manhole cover. You're supposed to say human power as opposed to manpower, right? You're supposed to say person door as opposed to man door, right? All right.
Yeah.
But if you're on the construction site, you might hear the occasional 4-letter word. And nobody says, well, there's a person door. People say, there's your man door, there's your manhole cover, right? They talk about manpower, man hours. I'm not saying you guys shouldn't change your language to fit in, but universities have become very politically correct, and men are not as welcome on campus as they used to be. And he refused to change his language to more politically correct, gender neutral language, and they fired him. He'd been there for over 20 years, right? And after you've been a professor for 20 or 25 years, there really isn't a whole lot of other jobs there for you. You understand?
Yeah.
So what is your bookkeeping business called?
Imperial Bookkeeper.
That's a great name.
Is it?
I like it. And how do you find new clients?
Well, Armin's one of them, and our family business, I guess. But I guess I'm learning mostly now.
So I don't have to tell you that, you know, Kijiji in Canada, Facebook Marketplace in Canada, the United States, Craigslist in the United States is the way that most bookkeepers find new work. It's if you wanted more clients, I'm not saying you want more clients, but if you want more clients, you know, that is definitely, you know, I'm sure I've shown you this before. You guys seen this before?
Oh
That
yeah,
was easy.
that was easy.
Oops.
It's out.
I need new batteries.
You pressed it too many times.
I probably have. Well, I don't show it that often, but it's available. But you want to find an easy button, whether it's the appraisal business or the Imperial bookkeeping business. In the Imperial bookkeeping business, you put an ad on Kijiji in Canada, Craigslist in the States, Facebook Marketplace in the States or Canada, you will get more clients. There is one other thing that you could do to get more clients, Ario, and that is a lot of accounting firms don't really like to do bookkeeping. Some of them do. They have their own bookkeepers, but many of them would like to work with trusted bookkeeping services, right? And so you obviously, your company Imperial provides the bookkeeping services to clients A, B, C, and D. At the end of the year, all of the bookkeeping stuff through QuickBooks is uploaded to the accounting firm, and then the accountants can fairly quickly put together, their financial statements, right? So it's called MMB. MMB stands for magical marketing button. It's just a term I made up. Magical marketing button. And in your case, I think it's Craigslist, it's Kijiji, it's Facebook Marketplace, and then it's accounting firms. And accounting firms just means if you're going to end up calling a bunch of them. If you're expanding to Toronto, you're going to call, in Toronto, there'll probably be at least 500 accounting firms. You'll call, each of them. And you'll say, hey, I've got a great bookkeeping service. I've got 3 bookkeepers in Toronto that are working for me. And we've got great reviews. And if you have clients who need some bookkeeping services, can you keep us in mind? And we'll coordinate with your accountants to make sure that the year end is easy. All right, Ario, does that make sense?
Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
What are you paying your bookkeepers?
Oh, I'm the only bookkeeper.
All right. Well, if you were hiring a bookkeeper, what would you pay him or her? And most of them are female.
I guess it depends on them really. But I was hoping I do like a cut. So they do kind of the work and I just take like, I don't know, 20% or something.
So,
and they take 1 or 2 clients like fully by themselves.
So typically what the Imperial would be in the human being rental business. That's really what you're doing. It's not the bookkeeping business. Okay?
I guess so.
So let's say, for example, you decided to pay, relatively new bookkeepers $40 an hour, okay, for somebody who's newish, and somebody who's got a lot of experience, you pay them $55 per hour. Okay, okay. I mean, that would be typical these days. And you would mark them up, I would think, if you're paying them $40, you would mark them up to 50, right? And if you're paying them 55, you'd probably mark them up to $70. So you could make, if you had 10 of these people, I mean, and you were making $10 an hour on each of them, you make $100 an hour times 40 hours a week, you're making $4,000 a week renting human beings. Okay, that's really what you're doing. I have a client in the States, in Texas, and she runs a personal support worker network, PSW. You know what a PSW is, right? Ario?
Yeah.
Not sure. No.
Personal support worker. So let's say your grandfather needed somebody to come in 3 times a week. He's struggling to get out of bed, to get properly cleaned up, get some physio. She's not a physiotherapist, but she would help him, move around a little bit, maybe go for a short walk. Say he needed that kind of help. She runs a PSW network, okay? And it's very successful. She has, depending on the month, she has between 30 and 35 PSWs who work for her. and she's making on average about $10 US an hour. So let's say she's running on average 30 of them times 10 times, and they don't work 40 hours, they work 35 because it's very hard work, right? So she's making about $10,000 US a week. Okay.
Wow.
And she doesn't want to expand beyond her 30 or 35 PSWs because she can manage 30 or 35 people, but she can't, without being a big tech company, you can't manage 3,000 of them. So you could probably manage, anywhere up to 20 or even 30 bookkeepers. Again, you could make $10,000 a week doing that. Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's all.
Definitely food for thought. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, it's your personal, like if everything went to hell in a handbasket as a professor and you were making $10,000 a week with your side hustle, your director or your dean, if he fires you, like because you uttered a swear word, you'd say, well, okay, I'll have to eke by on my $500,000 a year. Okay. But these are very simple businesses to run. The appraisal business is not simple, but the human being rental business, as long as you keep it small, is fairly simple. If you got into 500, 1,000, 3,000 of these people, you'd be Uber, right? Uber's really, really hard to run.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's enough of that. I really like the idea of the Porous pavers that you sent me, Ario and Armin. I've used versions of it myself. And you mentioned, I didn't know this, that there's a City of Ottawa, program to support this. How much money are we talking about?
Not a lot.
How much?
3,500 to 4,500. But if you're building a semi-detached building, that's 2 addresses, so you could qualify for $8,000 and get the same company to come in and do it all at once, I guess.
Yeah, I really like it. And I did it without even knowing that there was any kind of a program. So here are a couple of my buildings. I think I sent these to you already. So this is a triplex that my wife and I own. I may have shown you this before. And
Yeah.
so here's the main driveway, but you can sort of see on the right here, there's another apartment there. We put pavers in, and then more recently, we put in some additional gravel and some pea gravel. So this part here, Armin, is what's called hardscaping in the sense that you don't have to cut the grass, right? And for rentals, I'm not keen on cutting grass if I don't have to, right?
Yeah.
But what we did was we expanded the parking area to include this. So in fact, now on this triplex, we can park 2 cars like that.
Yeah.
All right. This is hardscaping. This is compacted gravel, and this is decorative stone. So
Can I ask you, sorry to interrupt, but can I ask you what the zoning bylaw is for parking? So as you know, we have 6 units and we have 4 parking spots, and
Yep.
2 of the units will probably have cars and that they would like to park illegally. Can they like side park in the lot? In what is the zoning bylaw?
So I got into some trouble on this particular development. I have a neighbor across the street who doesn't like me.
Yeah.
She weighs about 350 pounds, the poor lady. She's, about 5'2", and she's probably 5'2" wide. I mean, I feel sorry for her. I do. But oh my God, she hates my guts. And you guys have gotten to know me fairly well. My personality is a lot like biting on tinfoil. People who like me, they seem to really like me. And people who don't like me really hate me. That's just the nature of the kind of person I am. And I at 72, I've come to terms with that, right? If I was Ario's age, everybody likes to be liked, but I know that, if I meet 100 people, probably anywhere from 5 to 10% of them they just won't like me. And that's just the way it is. This lady hates my guts. So everything I do on this property, she rats me out. So the bylaw officer showed up, and so you can see the pavers here, right?
Yeah.
So in the bylaw, it says that you cannot have more than 50% of your front yard as hardscaping. So that includes asphalt and pavers. And I actually measured it out. It was, including the pavers that you see here, it was 51%. And so the bylaw officer, he actually measured the damn thing. He got the same number. He said, well, you're going to have to rip up some of your pavers. And he said, Mr. Firestone, you are not allowed to park in your front yard either. This looks like a parking space to me. And I said, no, it's just a hardscaping. We're going to put a picnic table out here for our tenant. That was complete nonsense, Armin. It is absolutely parking space.
Yeah.
But what I was telling him was the smart truth. In other words, you could put a picnic table on that thing, right? So I didn't lie to him. I just said, hey, well, no, we could put a picnic table there. But it was absolutely because my tenant needed a parking space. So we put that in. So anyway, he said he was going to fine me $500 for being 51% as opposed to 50%. And he's going to order us to remove part of it. And I said, well, before you do that, you should go back to whoever complained. And you know, you can complain in Ottawa anonymously, right? You don't have to disclose your name to me. I mean, so I said, I know you're not going to tell me who complained, but when you go back, and I said, when you go back and talk to her, you should tell her that if you do fine me $500, I will not pay that fine. And what I'll do is I will appeal the fine to Divisional Court. And when we get to Divisional Court, whoever complained, she will have to show up and give reasons as to why she objects. And she'll have to look me in the eye and do it. You can be anonymous on the 1-800-RAT line that the city of Ottawa operates, but you cannot be anonymous in a lawsuit, right? And I said, you should talk to her. And he kept on smiling because every time I talked about her, he was smiling, right? I said, you should talk to her and ask her if she would like to continue over a 1%, infraction. And if she wants to, then you find me. We'll go to Divisional Court and we'll see what Divisional Court says. I'm not taking anything up. This is a work of art. It's beautiful. And the other part of the whole argument, Armin, for what I did here was the city of Ottawa has two bylaws that are actually in contradiction.
Yeah.
One, you can't do front yard parking. And two, you can't park on the street during winter. So I said to myself, if I go to Divisional Court, I'm going to bring that up. You got two bylaws in contradiction. If we don't have a place for my tenant on the side here to park off the street, this city of Ottawa will tow his car.
Yeah. So
I mean, now that was 7 years ago, and the bylaw officer never came back.
Right.
So we can now park side by side. Armin, look at my cursor for just 1 minute. We can park two small cars side by side here in this driveway, and we can now park one over here and one here. So we have room for 4 parking spaces.
Yeah.
All right.
What is the process for the Divisional Court? Have you ever done it, gone through with it, or?
Oh yeah, I'm a crazy man when it comes to this sort of thing. I don't like being bullied by the city. And by the way, I don't look for fights, Armin. You know, I don't want to fight with the city. I have a lot of respect for bylaw officers. I just don't have a lot of respect for the bylaws. Like, you tell me what part of this, and you got to remember, I took this picture on the day that we actually were installing this, so it looks a little dirty here. But what part of this is objectionable to you from a visual point of view?
Nothing. It looks normal to
me. It looks very nice, right? I mean, it really does. It's a huge improvement. If I showed you the other, if I showed you my enemy's property across the street, it doesn't look like that. It's just full of weeds and shit and garbage everywhere. So this is an improvement. I don't let my properties look like shit. I do not. So I would take this to Divisional Court. I have done it. I've been to court a number of times. Knock on wood, I have never lost. And 9 times out of 10, it gets resolved long before you get in front of a judge.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I dug a pond on one of my properties. I create my own waterfront. I think I've talked to you guys about that, right?
Yeah.
If I have the right conditions, I'll dig a pond and I'll put a house right next to a pond. It'll look beautiful. So I dug a pond. You're allowed to dig a pond on your private property in the rural area up to a half an acre without a permit. Well, I dug one that was a little bigger. It was about 2/3 of an acre. This was on an 8-acre property, right? It was beautiful. And again, one of my neighbors didn't like me, ratted me out to the city. The Ministry of Natural Resources sent a fully armed police officer to talk to me about it. And I showed him the pond and I said, yes, it is a little bigger. And I told him why we had done that. I said, it's a watering hole for bird life, for the deer. It's got blanding turtles in it. It's got largemouth bass in there. It's a beautiful addition to the area. But if you're going to find me for being a little bit bigger than maybe I should have been, you can do that. But again, I'm not going to pay it. I will take you to divisional court and the complainant as well. But I said, before you fine me for doing this, can I show you the other 7 ponds that I've dug in this subdivision? This was a rural subdivision where the lots are 2 to 4 acres, so they're big lots. He said, you've dug 7 of them? I said, I have. Some of them are half an acre, but some of them are bigger. So if you're going to find me, you might as well find me for the, and then what we'll do is we'll go to divisional court and all of the homeowners who have these beautiful ponds are going to show up with lawyers. So you should be prepared, and the complainant should be prepared to face us in court and tell us why these beautiful nature ponds that serve an environmental purpose are not consistent with what you think is good land management. That was about 15 years ago, Armin. He never showed up again. So the first thing you want to do if you get into trouble with the bylaw officer is you want to talk to them and respectfully, okay? You don't swear at them and tell them to F off. Respectful. But I showed him all the other ponds, and it was about a 3-hour tour. By the end of the tour, we were best friends, and he was laughing. Right? So I think as long as you feel that you've got a good land use management plan in place, and that you're not hurting the environment, and you're in fact improving the community, you have good, strong arguments sometimes to be a little bit more flexible, right? Mm-hmm. But I can't coach you to do that. I can tell you that's what I've done. So I really like this idea. This is another one of my buildings here. Again, this is in the wintertime, we use this as an additional parking area, but it's also quite decorative and pretty. And then, of course, you know what porous pavers look like, right?
Porous pavers. I guess are these the porous pavers or the one above?
So this is pea gravel, decorative pea gravel. So again, it's porous in the sense that the rain will come down and so I think this probably will qualify under the City of Ottawa requirements. And I think what I've done up here on the right-hand side, where I've got pea gravel and gravel, I think it will also qualify. The pavers over here will not qualify. They are definitely not porous. Okay, but these are porous pavers, and I'm quite sure that they will qualify.
Okay.
All right, and these porous pavers are terrific. One thing you should know, though, if you put porous pavers in, you cannot plow the snow. You have to snow blow these.
Okay.
So if you hire like a snow removal company, they can't come with a plow. It'll destroy these things. Okay.
Okay.
They come with they have these huge snow blowers, so that's no issue usually. In fact, snow blowers are faster and cheaper to run than the plows, and they do a hell of a lot less damage. Okay. All right. Enough of that. So you also asked me, Ario, in your message to me to run through one more commercial deal. Okay. So I think I should do that if you guys have got enough time.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna head to the bathroom. I'll be back.
All right. Okay. All right. So Ario, I really like the bookkeeping business.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And another reason was because I'm a little familiar with financial concepts. I studied finance, so I thought maybe I can do like also a bit of advising while I do bookkeeping. Not like financial advising, but like kind of like financial officer, or what do you call it?
A chief financial officer?
Yeah, exactly, CFO. Yeah,
They call that a virtual CFO.
yeah, that's the one.
Okay. So for bookkeeping and virtual CFO, they're identical businesses in the sense that all you're doing is renting out human beings. You understand?
Yeah.
That is a fantastic idea. That is really nice differentiated value. That's a super great idea. Did you just come up with that now, or has that been in your mind for a while?
That's been a while. Although I don't know if it's differentiable because I feel like quite a few of them do that actually. Uh, I don't know if the
Yeah, quite a few
bookkeepers.
accounting firms might do that, but not very many bookkeeping firms.
Okay, I see what you mean.
You
Okay.
understand?
Yeah. Okay, so bookkeeping.
Sure. Damn. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I love that idea. That's a great idea. But right now, just start with the bookkeepers, and then you can, once you have, if you could get to 10 bookkeepers, working 35 hours a week, each of them adding $10 for you, that's a reasonable amount of money that you could make, right?
Yeah.
Week. Love it. All right. Okay, we're back. All right. I don't think I showed you this one, and if I have, I'm going to be mad at myself. But I wanted to show you what one of my clients did, and this is in the industrial space. I don't know if I ever showed you this. This is one of the deals that we did in Rockland. And this is the MLS listing, which showed they were asking $750,000 for 20 acres of highway commercial land on Highway 17, close to Rockland. Did I ever show you this?
No.
I don't
No,
think so.
good. All right. So one of my clients, he likes the industrial commercial business. He had his eye on this. He calls me up. I coached him, but I also helped him out in this case as a realtor. So I said to him, and this I know you have heard from me before. I used to say there were 3 ways to get poor, and then I added a 4th one, right? First one was get divorced. Second one was buy a horse ranch. Third one was to buy an NHL team. And the 4th one, which I added more recently, is to become a land developer, right? You guys, in a year from now, Armin, you'll probably agree with me. The quickest way to get poor is one of the 4 top ways is to become a land developer. And I'm being a bit facetious, but you have to be very careful in the land development business. So I said, Alex, all right, you want to buy this property. I get that. He had a very specific goal in mind. So this is 20 acres, and he wanted to retain about 20 acres. Sorry, about 12 acres. All right. And he wanted to build a business called Get Space, all right, which is a storage business. I'll show you what the plan looks like today. All right. Can you see my screen okay? All right. So it might be a little small. So this is the main road up here. Okay. Yes, I think. No, excuse me. The main road is actually up here. Can you see my cursor moving back and forth?
Yeah.
So he's keeping the 12 acres that's not actually on the highway frontage. It's sort of in the back. So it's the least, quote unquote, least valuable. The most valuable property actually has highway exposure. The least valuable doesn't. But in the storage and industrial business, I would argue the opposite. In the industrial business, you don't want the public to see what you're doing, right? You don't want those do-gooders and those NIMBYs, not my backyard types, to be calling bylaw officer every time you move a sea can. Or maybe you started up your truck at 10 to 7 and you're not really supposed to start it until 7. And then you had the beep, beep, beep as you back it up. At 10 to 7, you're really supposed to respect the noise bylaw and start at 7. And I think there's some, you know, in the evening, there's some time, maybe it's 10 or 11 where you have to be quiet after that. So if you miss that by 10 minutes, the busybodies and the do-gooders, they'll probably call bylaw on you, right? So if you're buying industrial property for industrial use, you know, if you guys were buying this to build a plaza, right, you'd want to be obviously on the highway, you know, gas station. Armin, I don't have to tell you, you want to be on the highway, but for industrials, you don't. So there's a new driveway that's coming in here. It will serve 2 properties, one here and one here, which I'll show you in a minute. But this is what Alex is developing for Get Space. So I don't know if you can see, it might be too small on your screen, but these sort of little squares here are contractor yards. You guys remember what contractor yards are, right? So if you're, let's say you were a plumber, electrician, whatever, you know, you have a yard where you can have your equipment, you can have your sea cans, you can have your materials stored there, you could even have a little workshop in there. Then these buildings here, which are long, skinny rectangles, which you can see here, are mini storage buildings. You guys know what those are, right, Ario?
Yeah.
Okay. And then over here is about an acre, and that is going to be similar to Earth Depot in Stittsville. What an Earth Depot is that's where you go and you get less than a truckload of pavers, gravel, pea gravel, decorative stone, fertilizer, you know, topsoil, etc. So if you want, you know, let's say you were doing a big project and you need 1,000 loads of gravel, you're not coming to Earth Depot for 1,000 loads. But if you needed, you know, a couple of yards of gravel for a project you're doing at home, you come here. So this will be an operating business where there'll be piles of sand, piles of gravel, piles of pea gravel, lots of decorative stone, all kinds of things that small landscaping companies need, and also, you know, Mr. Fix-It, you know, home hobbyists, okay? So this is an operating business. This is contractor yards. This is mini storage. And then this is something that's going to be quite new. Each one of these are those small workshops that I like. And what's neat about this is those workshops actually face what will be the new driveway. So if I was in there, let's say, I don't know, I'm a fencing contractor, I could have a contractor yard here, but I could rent a workshop here, which could also double as an office. So somebody could come in and see Fencel here, stop and say, hey, Bruce, I'd like to hire you to put some fencing and decking in for me. We can talk about that. This is a workshop and an office. And then there's my contractor yard back here. All right. And if you think about it, you don't need as much fencing because these workshops form part of your fence, if you sort of see what I'm getting at. They provide double use. So the very first thing that I did was I looked at the MLS listing. They were asking $750,000. And one of the first things that I would look at in almost anything that clients of mine or myself are buying, I look at DOM. And you know what that stands for, right?
Days on market.
Right. So this property had been for sale for at least 2 years.
Wow.
So that told me that there might be some flexibility in terms of buying and price, all right? And then Alex and I, so the first thing we do is we look at the MLS listing, we look at the days on market, and we have some idea of what the highest and best use might look like. And in this case, again, here's the main highway up here. This is called Ramage Road here. And what I said to Alex is we can sever off the front portion into 2 pieces, one on the corner, one inside, and then the big piece in the back, which you can hold on to for your, for Get Space. So this was just sketching that we were doing with SketchUp, if you know the program SketchUp. So it was just, we were fooling around. And all right, so we did, first of all, we looked at the MLS, then we looked at the highest and best use. and we did our preliminary site plan work. Then after that, we do a spreadsheet analysis, right? And I'll share that with you. And you've seen these, a million of these from me before. So this was done back in October of 2022, which is when Alex bought this property. So they were asking $750 for it, but we got it at $675. So he got it about $75,000 less than asking. It was 22 acres of highway commercial use land, which works out to about $33,000 an acre, which, Armin, I think is a very good price.
Yeah.
The zoning is fantastic. And what I said to Alex is we will sell off those two pieces at the top. You remember those two pieces I showed you at the top? Each about 3.5 acres. And we're hoping to get $402,000 for one, $297,500 for the one that's a little further along. Get a $700,000. He would retain 12.8 acres. And basically the cost for him to acquire his 12, almost 13 acres would be a negative cost of $4,000 if this plan worked, okay?
Yeah.
That's how you don't go broke as a land developer. Now, what actually happened was we did a little better on the corner piece. We sold that. I sold it on behalf. So as a realtor, Armin, you'll laugh. I help Alex buy it, then I help Alex sell it, right? So, you know, I'm making money coming and going, which has been helpful to me, right? But also to Alex. So we did a little better on that. We got $500,000 instead of 402. We got $500,000, and we sold that actually this month to a bus company out of Toronto. What they do, it's a Flick bus, if you know Flick bus.
Yeah.
And they run from Toronto to Ottawa, but they're expanding to Windsor and Detroit and to Montreal and Quebec City. It's a very successful operation. So they were looking along this long corridor, sort of from Detroit all the way to Quebec City. It's a long piece. They were looking for a place kind of close to Montreal, close to Ottawa, close to Toronto, but sort of in the middle. And industrial land in Ottawa that they were looking at was, you know, something like anywhere from $600,000 an acre to $1 million an acre. And they needed about 3.5 acres. So they needed a place to park their buses. They needed a place where their drivers can get some sleep, you know, because this is a station for them. They obviously will have people can come there and get on a bus, Montreal, whatever. And so they paid $500,000 for 3.6 acres. So what they ended up with was something that cost them about $140,000 an acre, right? As opposed to in Ottawa. What's out of there? Where's my cap? Jesus. I have no idea what I'm doing here. I'll find it later. So they thought that 138 or 139,000 an acre was better than $500,000 or $1 million. I agree with them. So, and they're very happy with the site. And because we had some success with that, we just upped our price for the other one from $297 to $349. So we'll probably sell that later this year or early next year. So his proceeds will probably be a little bit better than we thought. Probably be about $850,000 as opposed to 700,000. So we're hoping that between now and the middle of next year, his cost for acquiring his 12.8 acres will be a negative 177,000. That's a good result.
Yeah.
Okay. That's typically how I would analyze a deal. And that's why if I was an appraiser, you know, imagine if you were an appraiser and you had 1,000 clients, how many of those clients, Armin, would own some land like this? How many of those clients could do a severance or a couple of severances and take advantage of this same sort of model?
Yeah.
You understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
All right. So let me go back now to the other side, other screen. So this is the actual plan that we got approved. So we applied for severances. And so again, this is County Road 17. This is Ramage Road. We ended up with Part 3. That's the piece on the corner that's sold for $500,000 to Flick Bus. Part 7 has not yet been sold. Part 6 is being retained. And you see Part 4, 5, and 8 here. That's the driveway that is being put in. That's the shared access road.
Is the shared access road, is that called cross access easement or whatever?
Exactly. So Part 4 will belong to Flick Bus. Part 8 will belong to Part 7. When we sell Part 7, he or she, they will own 7 and 8. Alex will own Part 6 and Part 5. But Part 5 will have an easement over 4 and 8. 4 will have an easement over 5. 8 will have an easement over 5. So everybody can use everybody else's easement.
Yeah.
Or parcel. All right. These will be land easements that run with the title forever. Right. And there will be a joint maintenance agreement. I mean, they have to plow this. Eventually they'll have to repave it, you know, every, I hope 15 or 20 years, they'll repave it. So there will be a joint cost sharing agreement. The actual driveway itself is being put in by my client. Alex will put that in himself.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the original plan here, whoops, here, it's a little different than what I showed you. So this is the plan here, and this is the original sketch that we did. You'll notice that there's this little piece here that belonged to the Alex's property. I wanted him to have frontage on the highway simply so that he could have signage here.
Yeah.
Right. But the town of Rockland and the county said absolutely not. You know, the ingress and egress for this industrial subdivision is actually from this intersection here. They will not grant access. I said, you guys aren't reading this correctly. This is not a 20-meter right of way. It's not a right of way. It is kind of the neck of the property. It is part of this property back here, and it's only 10 meters wide. It's a signage triangle. 10 meters is not wide enough for a road. You guys know that, right?
Yeah.
You need at least 20 meters for a municipal road. So I said but they didn't believe me, and they refused to agree. So that's a battle we had to give up, because otherwise we wouldn't have got those severances. And the $800,000 or $850,000 was more important to Alex than having a sign on the road.
Yeah.
Okay. And what we did instead was we created a land lease right here that goes with the property. It's 21 years less a day. So Alex will be able to have a sign there for 21 years less a day on a land lease. A land lease for $2 a year. He's not paying anything, right? So he'll put his sign here for get space here, and he'll also put one up here. So he will have exposure for 21 years less a day. Maybe they'll renew it, but you know, I'm not worried beyond 21 years. So you'll notice that, let's go back to my spreadsheet. Let's go back over here and look at that spreadsheet one more time. Okay, so you'll notice here on the spreadsheet that I've only gone as far as, you know, looking at what his cost of the land is. Now, what some people would do, Armin, this is very important for you to understand. What some people would do is then they would look at the value of the 12.8 acres with that operating business that gets space will run on the property and say, well, we should evaluate that business and add that to his returns. That is incorrect. Mm-hmm. There's land value and there's a business value, and they're not the same. You know that, right? Yeah. All right. So just for the hell of it, let's sort of figure out what his internal rate of return is. I can't see my caps log here. What the hell have I done?
It's next to A.
Yeah, I know that. Whatever. Okay, I got a new keyboard. It's a gaming keyboard because it's easier on my fingers, but I have no idea what I'm doing. All right, so it'll come back.
Does it have a whole bunch of colors on it?
It has a whole bunch of colors on it. Okay, so let's just make it a real simple calculation, right? Equals, so at time 0, he's investing, I don't know, he's investing, he's buying it for this, and he is spending some money on severances, and he's doing that. All right, so this is kind of an approximate. So he's basically putting in almost $700,000. We're assuming it's cash. Now he happens to be he's a little bit older than you, Armin, but you know, he's done very well with his business. So, you know, he can certainly write the check, which he already did a couple of years ago. All right. So let's just assume he has no cost in year 1. And then in year 2, he makes this sale, which he did. And then maybe next year he makes this sale. All right. So the negative sign means it's cash out of his jeans, and then he gets a little bit of money. He got it actually last week. And then maybe next year he gets that. And then year 4, he doesn't get anything, we'll assume. Then what happens in year 5? In year 5, let's assume for the moment that he sells the land. There's nothing on the land. We just assume that this is just pure land development, right, Armin? Forget about get space. It's as if it doesn't exist, all right? And let's say 5 years out, it's worth, say, $200,000 an acre, right? He sold a piece for $138,000. Maybe in 5 years, it's worth that. Okay. So in 5 years, he sells, there's 12.8 acres for $200,000 an acre. Now, you know what this stands for, right? Internal rate of return. So he puts out $700,000 today, doesn't make any money in year 1, makes a little bit of money in year 2, a little bit more in year 3, and then year 4. So what is his internal rate of return? Let's find out. Equals, go up here to these functions, and we've got from here to here. That's our, and I think I screwed up. Okay, that's good. So he's not making as much money as you do with your currency trading. Like he's making 48% per year with this profile, okay? But still 48% is a hell of a lot better than 4% or 5% from your bank today, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're thinking about. And what I'm trying to explain is this doesn't necessarily have to be the sale of his business or of this piece of land at the end of year 5. It could just be a valuation. Okay, so when you do internal rates of return, this is the proper way to do it for land development. Okay, and I gotta stop sharing for a moment. And what have I ever talked to you about why 1 + 1 makes 3?
Long time ago, I think so, yeah, but I think I forgot.
All right, well, okay. I
remember we talked about it, but generally in mergers and acquisitions, that's a concept because of synergy.
Kind of. So what you have to do, and Armin, this is really important for you to remember because you're going to see this a lot in your practice. And then again, you too, Ario, if you're bookkeepers and you have virtual CFOs, they've got to know this stuff. Okay? All right. So what I'm getting at with 1 + 1 = 3. Hopefully this will stick this time. So let's say I helped you guys, instead of Alex, I helped you guys do this, all right? What you would do, maybe it's best if I show you a picture. Let's try this. All right. I'm going to draw a picture for you guys. All right. You can see my screen. I'm drawing a bunch of squares or rectangles.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Holdco. Oops. I'm still trying to find my freaking catwalk. All right. I think I found it. So this is Holdco. Oops, no, I did find it. All right. This is Opco. And this is Realco. Right? And then up here, we've got Armin and Ario. All right, so we're just going to assume that's just you two guys, not the family, okay?
Mhm.
All right. So Armin and Ario own Holdco. Holdco owns your operating company, and it also owns Realco. Realco leases the land to Opco. All right?
Yeah.
So in the what we're doing now, this would be Get Space Limited. That's how they run it. And this would be the Highway 17 land. All right. So what you're doing, and this is the way Alex has set it up, is he's got a holding company here that he owns with his family. His real estate company owns the land. And of course, when he sells these two parcels, there'll be some profits here. You guys would know, Ario, you probably would know that if these are all three Canadian companies, you can dividend profits from the real estate company up to holding company, the holding company, and from the operating company up to the holding company without any taxes, right? It's tax-free. So if this company is making some money from operations and this company is making some money because it's basically doing some land development, that can move up to the holding company. It's quite tax efficient. And then how you get it out of the holding company into the hands of Armin and Ario so they can spend the money, that's a lengthy discussion. We could have that perhaps another day. But this is a very efficient structure. And I'm telling you that 1 + 1 = 3 when you do this. And I'll tell you why. If you put the real estate company and the operating company in one, it's just a big mishmash, okay? Then you will shortchange yourself in a couple of ways. One, you won't necessarily have the operating company paying fair market value lease, because from the operating company's point of view, if the real estate company is making money from selling property or selling severed pieces, these guys will benefit from that, whereas they should not get any benefit whatsoever. So by separating these two different, these are apples and oranges. By separating them out, both companies will be required to work at market rates and efficiently. And what happens over time is if you have Get Space Limited, which has contract yards and has workshops and it has storage buildings and it has that other operating business, which is the Earth Depot. If that is successful, it will have its own financial statements, its own balance sheet, its own income statement, and its own financing. And one day, if it's successful, you could sell that business and keep the real estate company. So now, sometime down the road, you could sell this and keep the real estate company, And if you did that, right, you then simplify your business. You don't have an operating company, you just are collecting land rent. Are you getting that?
Yeah, just one question. When you purchase the property, who does it go to at first? Do you
Sorry, go ahead.
no, nothing. I was just saying, when you want to purchase the property, would you create the corporations before, after? How does that work? The land, let's say, in this case.
So what I'm doing here is sketching out. So let's say you had this, you would have only one holding company, but every time you bought another piece of land, you'd create another numbered company. Do you understand, Ariel?
Yeah.
So you could have 20 properties. It could be a piece of land, it could be multi-res, it could be commercial plaza, I don't care what it is. You could have a bunch of numbered companies over here. They're all owned by the holding company, right? But you probably would only have one operating company. All right, you might not, but you probably would. Like this operating company will have its own property management staff. It'll have its own repair and maintenance crew. It'll have all kinds of other things, you know, leasing crew, marketing crew, etc. And so the operating company could, in fact, operate any number of these businesses, but the real estate probably should be in separate companies. Just in case something goes wrong, you can just cut this thing off and bankrupt it without affecting the rest of it. Did I answer your question?
So would the holding company create a new corporation?
Yes.
Number corporation, the corporation buys the real estate?
Exactly.
Okay.
So real estate company has this one here, Realco 1. I guess I'll put a 1 in there. Realco 1 has I don't like that. Looks ugly. Trying to get it right. And that looks okay. So Realco 1 would own the Highway 17 land. This would be maybe a building here, maybe that 692 Crystal, right?
Yeah.
I'll send you this so you can understand it. Hopefully, Crystal. So this is multi-res, right? So you understand, Ariel, this is probably the best corporate structure I've come across. I'm going to save this in your file. Hang on, so I don't lose it. I'm going to call this corporate org chart. All right, that is a very, very good structure. If you do this, you open up tax efficiencies, you create more options for yourself as you get older, you have some creditor protection here, and you have like some synergy, that word I think you were using. Send that to you guys. Okay, is there anything else you guys wanted to go through before we break?
Not sure if Ario has anything.
What's that?
I'm not sure if Ario has anything. I think I'm okay. I don't have any more lingering questions. Any questions, Ario?
So couple of things while you're thinking about it, Ariel. Anytime you have a question, you know, it's a free service I provide. you need to email me or text me less than email, but if you need to email me, if you have a question, Armin, or you, Ario, it's a free service I provide. I mean, don't email me 10 times a day, but once in a while, we should ask Prof. Bruce about this, please feel free, you should email me. Okay. If you need any coaching in the future, if there's something you need, if you need an hour of my time, I charge $350. So if you needed an hour of my time on something, you can book me. It's $350 plus HST. Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
There is one thing I thought I would share with you guys, but it's confidential. So I might share it with you if you wanted to see what I'm planning to do next.
Okay.
Please
Sure.
do.
I don't think I talked to you about Melody Place.
Melody Place, no.
I don't think so, but it is confidential. I'm going to stop recording. Just make sure I pause it. I'm going to do that now.